Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom on fixer-upper or turnkey property. At exactly 11, so I'm going to give 1 or 2 minutes to the stragglers that are still trying to figure out Zoom. I'm going to explain a couple things about Zoom really quickly before we get started. There is a chat. I'm going to have to keep admitting people here. I'm going to say hello.
You talk, I'll admit.
Yeah.
How's that?
Sounds good. And so there's a chat. You can leave any questions you want there. We're going to give a 15-20 minute presentation, and then we're going to open it up to ask any questions, have open discussion. If we're talking, and just so you don't forget your question, you can drop it in the chat right away. You can also, under participants, raise your hand if you want to ask a question while we're still talking, so that, because it's important or relevant at the time that we're giving the presentation. Do that. Everybody's on mute. I have to unmute you, or you have to unmute yourself to talk. I'm going to keep everybody on mute just for now, just background noise, keep it limited. If there's any questions now about Zoom, now would be the time to ask about how to use Zoom. Other than that, I would say that we're just going to wait 1 more minute to get started. But while we're doing that, you know what? While we're waiting, why don't we go around and people can introduce themselves and ask and tell us if they're in the market to be buying right now or why they've joined us today. So I'm going to go around down my list in alphabetical order and let people, I'm going to unmute you and then let you introduce yourself. So first is Andrew.
Hi, my name is Andy Welchek. I'm a partner at Cohen Hockman and Allen and a friend of JP's. So whatever he invites me to, I'm down for. Plus, coincidentally, this week I got an offer accepted to buy a condominium townhouse in West Orange, which is, we hope, a turnkey operation. But this could be a helpful session to double check and assess my risks and my design choices, so to speak.
Well, congratulations, Andrew. That's awesome to hear. Next is Anna. Good morning, Anna. Nope, Anna maybe can't speak. Wait 1 more second. Oh, okay. I'm going to try to pronounce your name. Aigul? Charles?
Aigul.
Aigul. Sorry about that. Aigul, would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe not have sound. I'm realizing some people don't have sound on their device, but you can hear it, hopefully.
You can individually mute your own thing. Maybe that's what they've done.
Right. Aigul, you'd have to unmute yourself if you want to introduce yourself. I'm going to come back. You can tell me if you want me to come back to Jason. Good morning, Jason.
Right.
Hi, Jason. How are you? Nope.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Lots
Scott?
of shy people.
A lot of shy people. Hi, Scott. Would you like
Hi,
to introduce yourself? Hi, Scott. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm Scott Klein. JP has been a very good resource for my team at Compass, and I can only stay on for a bit, but I wanted to join you for, just to be a part of this.
Well, welcome. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. Good to have you.
I'm going to go to Tammy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Tammy.
Yes.
How are you?
Hi, Tam.
Okay. Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm a dear friend of JP's. I'm not in the market, but I would listen to anything he had to say, including, watching paint dry on a wall.
As we've done many times together.
Well, lovely to have you, Tammy. Good morning. We'll people keep coming in.
Love it.
Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Wilson. I'm an estate planning attorney. I've actually done a webinar series with Victoria, and I saw this topic and I love it. Part of my 2-year plan is to buy a house upstate, and I'm definitely a fixer-upper kind of person.
Then this is,
Awesome.
you came to the right place.
Absolutely.
Then there's another Jessica, Jessica Herta.
Hi, Jessica. Can you hear us?
You can't hear her.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
Hi guys,
Oh,
this is
there she is.
Agul.
Oh, hey,
Oh no, this
Agul.
is Agul Charles. Hi, sorry, I had some technical difficulties earlier. I couldn't hear what you guys saying, but I'm very glad to be here. I'm looking forward to learning all the gems you have to share.
Mhm. Thank you.
Welcome. Kristen?
Hello, sorry, I wasn't on mute and then I muted myself. I am looking to buy a home probably in the next 6 months or so. Me and my husband just moved to Stamford, Connecticut, and I'm not actually sure how I found this, but I was really happy I did. So
No,
glad to
that's
be
so
here.
nice to hear. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Mark.
Mark is on a computer that does not have audio, so he is
Oh, good.
listening only. But
Okay.
Mark is a virtual CFO and is a colleague of mine. So anyone who is in an entrepreneurial position who needs someone to look over your books before sending everything off to your accounting please reach out to him.
Oh, how lovely. Michelle.
How's that for a little commercial?
That was great. Michelle.
Hi, sorry, I was looking to unmute myself, but you already did it. I'm here because I know JP and I trust him. And I currently live in Westchester, and I'm thinking about in about 2 years moving. And so I wanted to try and get on here and look, because I do like older homes. I live in an older home now. And so if I buy a house, I would love to get something that I could get my hands on and work with. So,
Well, lovely to have you. I'm going to go to Chelsea.
Hey,
Hey, Chelsea.
how are you?
Good.
I'm here. I'm actually working with Victoria right now. Any day now we'll be in contract for an apartment in Brooklyn, and I just need some design ideas. Sorry, just looking for like some design ideas. Trying to turn this 1-bedroom into a 2-bedroom.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah.
I am the queen of space, so we should chat.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chelsea. Is there, I think I went through almost everybody, Randy and Nick. Would you like to introduce yourselves? I'll unmute. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick DiSabella. I'm a real estate agent here in Connecticut, and I've known JP since we've been in diapers.
Pretty much. Last week.
I'm sorry?
Last week we were in diapers.
Exactly, right? And I'm here to listen to and try to find out ideas for clients here in Connecticut because, we're getting a lot of New Yorkers coming into Connecticut.
Yeah, I hear that there's a lot of people leaving New York, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's happening.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, I think I called on everybody. If I didn't call on you and you want
Randy.
Sorry,
Yes.
I did say Randy's name.
And
Thank
on
you very
yes.
much. And on yes. Hi. So yes, we had a little computer problem. We're able to speak now, and JP is part of my networking group. But more than that, he's a friend, and he's helped us extensively with home items and decorating suggestions. So all the power to JP.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're both here.
Yep.
If
Unmute myself.
Thanks for joining us, Andy. If anybody wants to introduce themselves, but they haven't, just unmute yourself. I think I got through everybody's names though. So
Jason, I believe.
We
Jason
tried
Perna.
Jason, but he couldn't speak. Can you speak now, Jason?
I'm sorry, I had to jump on a phone call I got. My name is Jason Perna. I work very closely with JP. I'm a contractor in Manhattan, and we work on multiple projects together in the city, in Brooklyn, and everything's he's my right hand man. Design.
Oh, you're my right hand. How's that going to work out with two right hands?
My left hand.
Exactly.
Well, welcome everybody. Let's get started. Thank you all for joining us today and introducing yourselves. And like I said, drop any questions in the chat. I'm going to share my screen now and go through the presentation. First, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Victoria Alexander. I'm the founder of Realty Collective, a Brooklyn-based boutique real estate agency. We specialize in overcoming the stereotypes associated with real estate agents and take an ethical approach to and practices to offer more transparent experience for clients. And this is John Patrick, but I think his friends call him JP.
Hey, I'm JP Patrick. I'm an interior designer and real estate stylist. I work very closely with realtors and with clients. On the realtor side, I do create a buyer profile for the ideal buyer for a property, and then we proceed with renovation or just cosmetic staging. On the interior design side, I do love working with clients and creating their ideal version of home. And of course, now that everything has changed, we are certainly spending a lot more time at home. So that is a very important step, feeling comfortable, feeling like you're getting the most value from your home while you're at home. So thank you all for joining.
Anna raised her hand. Anna, do you want to introduce yourself before we get started?
I'm not sure if my audio or anything is working, but I'm joining in because I had a property in the Catskills, and so with no real estate background, I can maybe learn a little as well as going to be investing in some properties otherwise. So just because it's interesting and because I think what you do is cool.
Well, thanks, Anna, and thanks for joining us. I also own a property in the Catskills.
I know that.
Did you say you own property there or you're an agent there?
I just own property. I'm an owner and I'm looking to sell.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to now share my screen so that you guys can see the little presentation we have. So welcome to Design Perspectives, what to look for when shopping for a property, a fixer-upper versus turnkey. Whoops. Yeah. So first thing to think about, why buy? Your rent is too high, you want to create your own design, you want to build equity, there's tons of tax benefits, the stability of owning, you love New York. Maybe that's New York City, maybe that's upstate, but that you feel now at this point, you're really committed to living here. And so making a financial decision to commit to that is really smart at this point. 5 to 10% a year in value growth here in New York City on most properties without doing much, right? So that's the natural state of the market. Then I like to go over with everybody what it'll cost. So people seem to forget that it's not just the cost of the property. You then have your insurance. Then you have your closing costs. Closing costs are usually 2 to 4% of the purchase of the property. And a good rule of thumb is that they're 3 to 4% for anything over $1 million. The other thing that people don't take into consideration is the actual move. Depending on the size of the property that you are buying or you're moving from, you have some moving costs that you need to take into consideration for the actual movers. And then all of the new furniture and things you have to buy for the new property. So these are the things that you need to think about that I underestimated when I was buying my house, that not only was I going to have to swap out hardware and put the fixtures in because I bought a new construction and they didn't put a toilet paper holder in, you know, I had to buy all those things. And that's something to think about when you're buying new construction. Does the developer offer, you know, a built-out closet? Is it, when you buy a resale, someone's lived in it and has usually customized those things, so they've already put that equity and value back into the property for you. Then there is something called the break-even horizon. And that's when two parts of it. You're going to recoup the cost to actually buy the property, right? So in New York, I like to say that that is 5 years. You bought the property in 2000. If you want to break even, you probably can't sell in 2005 because of the break-even horizon, and that's the closing costs on both sides. If you're a seller, your closing costs are a lot higher. You're looking at more like 8% for closing costs. So once you take in the closing cost, your carrying cost, and your mortgage, the interest you've paid on your mortgage, plus then canceling that out with the value increase of the property, minimum New York is you have to hold a property for 5 years if you're not buying something that is under market, and you're finding value that you're appreciating. If you're flipping, that doesn't come. This doesn't come into account. That's a totally different conversation. But I would say on the norm, it's a 5-year hold for if you're moving into it with the intent of living in it. Where do you look? So people start to look on the internet, right? Start browsing properties in their price range, and that can then range for a whole bunch of different neighborhoods. You can probably afford a 2-bedroom under $1 million in Williamsburg and Brooklyn Heights and in Manhattan, parts of the different neighborhoods there, like the East Village. But that doesn't mean that neighborhood has exactly what you're looking for. So it's not just about the price point and the size. You need to consider the neighborhood and the amenities that come into that neighborhood. If you're somebody that wants to live near open space, you want to live near a park, you want to live near a neighborhood that has lots of restaurants because you eat out all the time, you need to think of the amenities of the neighborhood and take that into consideration. Then just because you can afford a 2-bedroom under $1 million in Brooklyn, that doesn't mean that that neighborhood, besides the amenities, is going to have something called the product, we like to say in the industry, that you want. So if you're looking for brand new construction, you want to live in a tall building with a doorman and lots of amenities like a gym, how many neighborhoods in Brooklyn do you think actually have that? Probably mostly just Williamsburg. Anything that has a lot of Long Island City, there's not a lot of saturated new construction in other neighborhoods because one, Brownstone, Brooklyn is a lot of its historic landmarks, so they're not building big towers. Sunset Park, you're not getting a lot of new construction. You're getting townhouses and townhouses that have converted into condos. So you want to make sure that the needs of your criteria match the products that are available in that neighborhood type. So Prospect Heights is going to have a lot of co-ops. There's a big difference between co-ops and condos. You're probably not going to be able to, you'll have a lot more cost associated with a co-op because of the, you have to make sure all of your contractors are licensed. You have to get all of your plans approved by the board. And you have to get permits for every small thing that normally maybe you could push under a different permit or something. So the cost of doing the renovation in the co-op ends up being a lot more money. So I'm just talking about just the beginning to start thinking about your search. These are the things that you should start laying the groundwork to think about how you start purchasing something and comparing the fixer-upper to the turnkey. And I think that I'm going to let JP talk more specifically about what is between the four walls. And I think that's you're on, JP.
Awesome. So thank you, Victoria. So in home buying strategies, we basically have two categories. There is the fixer-upper, which is a real estate vernacular term, and it's a property that usually requires redecoration, reconstruction, or redesign, although it probably can be used as it is, which is also another buying strategy for someone that we know now called the flipper. The flipper buys the fixer-upper and turns it into a turnkey property. And the turnkey property is, again, according to Wikipedia, it's a home or property that is ready for occupation in its intended purpose. In other words, you walk in and it's fully functional. It doesn't need any upgrading or repairs, or does it? You can move on to the next slide. So here on the left is an example of a fixer-upper. You know, just from the immediate sort of visual evaluation of this, you can see that the roof needs repair. You can see that there don't appear to be structural issues, although most of the windows are missing or broken. You know, and then once we go inside, it's probably been open to the elements, and there's a whole nother slew of things. And then the turnkey property on the right, obviously that looks like you just want to go in and, you know, put your welcome mat down at the door and just move right in. So we can go on to the next slide. So there are benefits and pitfalls to both of these home buying strategies. You can go on to the next slide. So the benefits of a fixer-upper. It's usually the worst house in the best neighborhood. So it's affordable entry into a very desirable neighborhood. You can remodel the fixer-upper to your own taste. You don't have to buy what someone else has done that you may or may not like. And there is a built-in profit potential. So you do a renovation and you automatically have created equity in your home. And again, this is bringing us to another topic for another presentation about flipping. The turnkey property is move-in ready. So it's been painted, it's possibly new construction, no renovation needed, all the work is done. There's no, usually in a turnkey, there's no hidden liability like faulty construction or anything like that. So, you know, all the repairs have been done. Apologize, there's a typo there at the end. So let's go on to the next. So pitfalls in the fixer-upper. You definitely are going to need renovation prior to occupancy. And with renovation comes uncertain timelines, such as permits required by the Department of Buildings. You need to find a construction crew. You need to make sure, as Victoria mentioned, she needed a toilet paper holder and she wanted to change out her hardware. So that creates a supply chain. So can I go on Amazon or can I walk into my big box store and just buy what I want? Then you have some other, you know, hidden aspects. So unexpected discovery of costly defects in the property. So in the photo that we looked at earlier of the fixer-upper, you could see that the property had been open to the elements. So that would create mold and mildew. And as you know, that has to be remediated before you can do anything. And that can be a very costly, very unexpected part of renovation. Anything that was built or renovated before 1975 has probably got lead paint and asbestos in it, either asbestos insulation or asbestos linoleum on the flooring. The plumbing and the septic. So if you're in a home out in the country, you probably have a septic system as opposed to a sewer tank. You've got to have that inspected. A lot of the apartments that we're seeing turning over in Brooklyn that are not in new construction have the pressure sensitive flushing mechanism on the toilet. That has to be upgraded to a tank system. You want to make sure that the electrical supply is going to power your sub-zero refrigerator, that you can have all of your electronic devices plugged in. You know, electrical upgrades are certainly very important. And then lastly, there could be structural issues. So, you know, you walk in and you can see that there's a pitch to the floor, or there's leaking in the roof, or you can tell that, you know, there's plaster work that needs to be done. And you, obviously, if you find structural issues, you need to either bring in an architect or a structural engineer, and that can be very costly as well. There are also, unfortunately, pitfalls with the turnkey property. Again, you're buying someone else's taste. So when you walk through the turnkey property, there may be, it may be poorly constructed, or the contractor has used very poor quality materials. An example of that is a lot of times I see, to get around a very tight renovation budget, someone puts granite countertops on top of, you know, decrepit cabinetry that they just gave a quick coat of paint to. So in the photographs of the property or in the initial walkthrough, if you're not looking for these particular areas of quality, you may miss that. You may buy a turnkey property, and as Victoria mentioned earlier, you may need to add a closet system, or you may need to add a toilet paper holder to the bathroom, or there may be You know, maybe the flooring is not right for you and you want to upgrade from a linoleum floor or a vinyl floor to a wood floor. Another issue that we see a lot with turnkey properties is we get into bidding wars, actually with any property, but especially with the turnkeys. So the purchase turns into a financial stretch. You're paying top dollar in a neighborhood where maybe now you're the Joneses and you own the most expensive property on the street. And just recently, in the last couple of years, we saw this happen in the Sunset Park neighborhood in Brooklyn. People moved into this neighborhood and the prices were going up, and then all of a sudden the market softened and people who had paid the top dollar are still waiting for those properties to be worth what they paid for them even 3 and 4 years ago. Which brings us to the next topic. You're exposed to fluctuation in the economy. Right now, we're very lucky. We've had a minimal price correction. We are still seeing deals close. But when you buy at the top dollar, there is always the potential for a falling out of the market, whether it's the real estate market or the stock market. And then your property, again, as I said, you become the Joneses. The property is not in sync with most of the neighborhood. So you go in and you see like modern construction, and it's the only modern construction on a whole street of brownstones, or the property is so over improved in a neighborhood where it is maybe the only property that's over improved. So it's going to take years before the property that you purchased is going to be in sync with all the neighboring properties. And that, you know, that puts you in a bit of, you know, financial liability. You know, things happen. People have babies. People get divorced. You know, there are debts and all that kind of stuff. And as you say, there's about a 5-year threshold of breaking even. If you buy the most expensive property in the neighborhood and then you have to sell it in a year or 2 or 3, chances are you're going to have to take what you can get. And we can move on. So these are some examples in a fixer-upper of real numbers. The average kitchen gut renovation can range between $25,000 to $100,000 and up. Now, obviously, that depends on the size of the kitchen. It depends on what kind of finishes you choose. I mean, obviously, there's a difference in price between a butcher block countertop and a granite or a marble countertop. There's also, you know, a difference between the Frigidaire or the Kenmore refrigerator and the Sub-Zero refrigerator. So depending on what your taste is or what your needs are, and of course the size of the kitchen. The average bathroom gut renovation can range between $8,000 and $30,000 and up, again, depending on materials. Do we need to fix the plumbing? Do we need to fix the electricity? Professional painters. This is something that I am very attached to, a very glamorous paint job, as anyone who has worked with me knows. Professional painters. Just to paint one room, it can be between $300 and $1,000, depending on how much plaster repair there needs to be done, or is there a lot of trim? Do you want multiple colors? Do you want wallpaper? Floor refinishing, which is basically repairing the existing wood flooring, that can range between $5 and $25 a square foot. Floor replacement, meaning new wood floor or engineered wood, can be between $9 and $50 a square foot. And when you're looking at a large 1-bedroom unit that's 1,000 square feet or more, that's could be $5,000 just to do the floors. Then you may have electrical and plumbing upgrades. You need new windows, can be pricey depending on whether or not you're in a co-op or a condo. And again, co-ops have a lovely way of telling you how you can or cannot live in your home and what materials you can or cannot use. And then, of course, additional expenses that Victoria mentioned are the moving expenses. And in addition to moving, if you're doing a renovation and you're in a rental and you need to be out of your rental by a certain time, what if the property's not ready and you have to move into an Airbnb or a temporary apartment? So you have to, you know, in a home buying situation, these are all of the sort of expected expenses. And we can go on to the next slide. So the hidden surprises, mold and mildew. I mean, that is almost something you can discern immediately upon entry into a property. You can smell the mold, you can smell the mildew. Active leaks, you can generally see those. Maybe they're coming from the upstairs apartment or they're coming from the outside. Lead paint and asbestos is usually anything, was used between 1945 and 1975. So if you're a new construction that was built like after 1980, you generally don't have to worry about those things. Structural issues, and then my favorite, Nick DiSabella and I have run into this a few times, illegal or non-permitted work. So someone has done an old renovation on a property and maybe they closed in a screen porch and they're now calling it a bedroom. Or they added a bathroom that they didn't get a permit for, and they're trying to sell the home. It has 2 bathrooms, and they say it has 2 bathrooms, and then the buyer does their due diligence and finds out that the second bathroom was never permitted. So these are all, issues that we run into as far as hidden surprises, and each one of these on its own can really break your budget, and then you can have sometimes any multiple of these in a fixer-upper. We can go on to the next slide. So these are some recent projects. I have 2 master bathroom, a master bathroom on the bottom and a small family bathroom on the top. And then the lower right-hand corner is currently in contract in Skimmerhorn Street in Brooklyn. And the upper left corner is a really beautiful 1-bedroom apartment. And just to give you an idea, the renovation budget for the left-hand corner, the 1-bedroom apartment, that was a gut renovation, and we had to do that with a very tight budget. We did a new kitchen and a new bathroom, and we did it the whole apartment. It was about 550 square feet, and we did it for under 15,000. The bathroom under that you see with the white cabinetry, that bathroom cost $150,000 because of the finishes. And we broke into the laundry room and created a double master bathroom. The family bathroom above that was only $15,000, but we reoriented the location of the tub. So the tub used to be parallel to the wall where the toilet is, and we moved, and the toilet was under the window. So we swapped out those spaces to make more room, to make it more family friendly. And then the lower right-hand corner, that apartment is also staged, and we had a respectable budget. But in order to get a feel for the architectural style of the building, I painted the ceiling beams in black to give them a more architectural feature. So this is just an idea of what you can do with fixer-uppers, and these were all fixer-uppers that turned into turnkey properties.
I'm really impressed about the budget for those properties. I can't, oh, somebody's calling. How is that happening? Sorry about that. I'm really impressed with the budget that you did these projects on. I have never done a bathroom, a 1-bedroom apartment for $15,000. So,
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of IKEA.
Yeah, well, no, that happens. And that works sometimes. That's why IKEA exists. That's
Right.
really beautiful, and that's great. And then even to do a full bathroom and reorient, because you have to change where the plumbing and everything for that. To do that for a bathroom for $15,000, that's a great budget too.
Yeah. Again, we used big box store finishes. So like the floor tile came from Home Depot, and the vanity also came from Home Depot. And then the tile, even though, this is where a lot of people say to me, I can't afford to work with an interior designer. Well, what would be the cost of bad design, or
Right.
doing it wrong and then having to redo it, or doing it not to the standard that you would like it done and then having to redo it again? So I always say that it pays to consult with a professional.
Right, because if you put them together the right way, there are good choices at big box stores. What happens is people end up picking the one that is not aesthetically pleasing, or because of cost, and doesn't match maybe other things in there. So when you're putting all of the elements together, which is what you do so well, it seems like, from those big box stores, you can come out with a very beautiful look if you make those choices mindfully. So I think that this is a testament to how well you did that, learning now that they're IKEA and big box finishes. And it's very impressive budgets that you did them on.
Thank you. I mean, I also work Craigslist, and I do get free things. I mean, you know, there are ways around every situation.
I say if it's free, it's for me.
Absolutely.
And that's like there's great finds. You know, I've done a lot of digging, like people, and then if once you're in the industry, people sometimes are like, oh, we have a whole bunch of stuff that we can't get rid of. You can pick through it, you know, and then you get it at a discount or for free. And it's really great. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Well, I'll leave us up there.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you so much, JP. And so now I think we're going to open it up. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we open it up for questions and discussion?
No, I thank you for the compliments.
I'm very impressed. So
thank you.
And Kristen says, beautiful work. So there's no questions.
Yes, thank you, Kristen.
And I don't see anybody's hand up. Is there anybody now? I'm going to leave it so that people can ask questions now about their specific.
My hand is up.
Oh, somebody's
hi,
hand.
Deborah.
Hi, you can't see me, but I'm here. I wanted just to amplify something that JP just said about doing your own styling on your own without a professional. It's not just that, let's say by some fluke of good luck, you can replicate something like what JP can do. How long do you think that's going to take you? And time is money in those situations. So it doesn't matter if you could do it yourself. You've got to count in the fact that JP can do it in 3 weeks. You know, that you can check that box on and move into whatever it is that you're moving into, flipping, living. That's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that perspective and bring that to those points up, because time is money. And then, you know, if you're going to move into this place and then not have to rent, but, you know, the project got dragged out to 6 weeks when somebody could have helped you do it in 3, those 3 weeks are a big difference if you had to move everything into storage. So I appreciate that, Deborah. Was there anybody else?
Yeah, that actually brings us, that's another topic is, you know, Jason is a contractor. We've worked together quite a few times. Time is definitely money. And, you know, especially when you're working in the fixer-upper situation, you never know what you're going to find. It's like a treasure hunt almost. We recently did a project in Brooklyn that actually was halted because of the COVID-19 crisis. But every wall that we opened, we would find something else. So there was the apartment had been renovated 20 years ago, and they just literally put everything on top of all of the old problems that they hadn't taken care of. So not only did we have to repair and remove the bad renovation, we had to deal with everything that they covered up by not dealing with it. And unfortunately, my homeowner had to bear the brunt of that. And a $50,000 kitchen bathroom renovation and a lovely paint job turned into a $70,000 renovation. And we're currently on hold. So that put us, you know, behind schedule. So, you know, these are all unforeseen circumstances that even the most professional, ethical people are going to find. But the way I feel is you have to let people know this is in your house, you know, and if you don't take care of it now, you're going to have to take care of it later. And it's either going to cost you money at the negotiating table if you're selling, or it's going to cost you money later when you have to deal with it because something stops working.
And that's a really important part too, is having a really good inspector. You need to have an inspector come through any property in New York City and really tell you what you're working with, because they're going to be able to look at the mechanicals and see things that from that perspective, that's going to tell you, you know, this is something you're going to have to address. And looking for the short fixes, because short fixes end up becoming long-term fixes for a lot of people. Right. I always believe do it right the first time, or else you end up with a short fix for a long time with not the intention. And then it can have other ripple effects on some of the other things within your home. So if you make a patch and don't do it the right way the first time, it could turn into a much bigger project down the line, when if you had done it right, you know, for a couple $100 off the bat, you would save yourself a headache in the future. So that's why working with professionals which there seems to be a lot of them on this call, which I really appreciate, is so important in getting their expertise. So it looks like Andrew wrote in the chat that he has a question. Andrew, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's sharp analysis, and I have the kind of question that when clients ask me, I always tell them I refuse to answer, but I'm shameless today. I'm happy to ask you all, what's going to happen to the market? My guess is that the prices will go down in the city and Jersey City, Hoboken, the other denser places close in for commuting, and will go up outside those areas in the suburbs in New Jersey and Westchester and Long Island that are still within train distance when people can use trains, but will be less crowded and presumed to be more comfortable. We'll see. I would be curious to know what the other folks on the call think about that.
Okay, you want to ask other people? I was going to give you my perspective.
No, I
would love to hear your perspective. Let's start with you guys.
Go ahead.
Y'all are
Victoria.
the pros. Go for it.
So I think that there's going to be adjustments, right? The market was already very, pushed. We were on a very high point. We were going very up to begin with all of this. So we were already stretched to the top of that. And I think there's going to be an adjustment and we needed to have a correction. It was time for a correction and coronavirus has done that. The markets that I'm seeing are mostly affected are the ultra luxury markets. So things that are like 10, 20, $30 million, they're seeing large discounts in this right now. There's a whole building that's right next to the UN, hasn't sold one apartment. There's a lot of luxury market products that are sitting because they were on the market in the fall and were overpriced to begin with because of the exorbitant expectations of developers. So I think that there's going to be a big correction in those properties. The regular market, I'm closing deals. I'm having buyers come in where people are trying to negotiate and haggle a little bit, and like sellers realize there's a little bit of room, but it's holding especially in Brooklyn. So I know that other people might having different experiences, but we have space, a lot of access to green space and bigger apartments. So the market feels like it's holding with a slight adjustment here in Brooklyn for things that are, under $1 million, under $2 million. I'm sure that the luxury market here is also going to be affected, but there's less of it than there was Manhattan. The other adjustment in the market is going to be the estate homes. So that's where you're going to really be able to work with JP and buy an estate property that's in a state condition that if you got it at, it would definitely be selling for below market because it's going to need a lot of work. Not just the cosmetic part of it, but I'm sure if somebody unfortunately didn't live through this experience, that they are going to leave the home into a family that needs to liquidate that asset, and there'll be opportunities for people to purchase those properties. The rental market has come down a little bit, but the thing in Brooklyn is that some prices are holding, but the landlords are definitely now more eager to pay brokers' fees, which they were going to have to do anyway, but now they're very much encouraged to do so because they know that their clients' budgets are adjusted. So I think it depends on the type of product that you're talking about. The market as a whole had to get corrected, but I'm not seeing huge dips like 10, 20% off for a $1 million house. Like, that's going to sell for $800,000. I lived through. I'm very popular. Sorry. Lived through the 9/11. I lived through Hurricane Sandy. I lived through the crisis of 2008, all doing real estate. And yeah, the most dip I saw was after 2008 and 2009 financial crisis. But the corrections were very small, and there was deals to be had if you were in the right place at the right time. And I think that's probably the situation now. I don't know the apartments we have and things that are happening. There's less than you would think of people fleeing the city that I'm dealing with anyway. So does anybody else want to?
Any other thoughts on the Garden State and other locations?
They're still really high in Jersey, but go ahead, Jake.
So I know Andrew through BNI, which is a business networking group, and we're colleagues. And this has actually been a very hot topic in my group. because we're very real estate heavy. But, I'm still getting phone calls from people who want, how much is it going to cost to paint? How much is it going to cost to move? And I'm seeing a lot of movement with my own client base. I'm seeing a lot of movement, within the city. People are upgrading, downsizing, what have you. My niece, who actually is a longtime Brooklynite, has 2 small children, and she and her husband recently decided to relocate to Westport, Connecticut, and they paid a lot of money for their house, probably more than they should have, but they definitely were ready to leave the city, and they were renting here. But in terms of the price correction, yeah, we were definitely headed for a slight correction. And again, there has been in recent years tons of luxury overdevelopment in Manhattan. And again, a lot of those buildings are sitting empty. And I do think as there is, this is my third economic change that I've gone through. So, I was here in the 90s when Chelsea was literally Greek diners and Greek belly dancing bars and, transvestite prostitutes all up and down the streets. And now if you can find a studio apartment in Chelsea for under $1 million, people consider it a bargain. So, that neighborhood transition, but it's holding its value because it's so vital and there are so many amenities. And then, I was here in 9/11 when we had the great exodus, and a lot of people, older, especially older people, I think, when I say older, I mean older than me, are cashing out, retiring early, or their economic situation changed, so they either gave up their rental or they sold their apartments. And we saw a huge increase in inventory at that time, and the real estate values were not really affected so much. But then, of course, in 2007, 2008, on the cusp of the Madoff scandal, and then the subsequent depression, economic depression at that time, yes, the prices were greatly affected. And we still see areas in the city that the prices are not even what they were in 2008, 2009, as a result. So it's going to be very interesting. We are still seeing deals close, sometimes taking a little longer, but and then, as Nick mentioned earlier, there is an exodus of people who are leaving and moving out to, Westchester and farther out in New Jersey and into Fairfield County. I hope that answered your question, Andy.
Yeah, thank you both. I appreciate that.
Anybody else want to chime in as an expert? And I see that Michelle also has a question. So anybody else can chime in on the topic. I like this discussion. Or Michelle, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Question is around, actually, I don't know if you have anybody who's a mortgage broker on there right now, but maybe Victoria, this, after the 2007-8 collapse, the mortgage qualifications became more stringent. And now I just heard that because of COVID, they're saying that they're going to further heighten the qualifications that they're going to want for people who want to purchase homes or apartments. And I'm wondering if you'd heard anything about that and what it currently looks like today for someone to, get qualified.
Yes, as I do a class, I'm doing another class on June 2nd with a mortgage broker and a lawyer. If you want to join, going over purchasing during COVID and what that looks like. So specifically, we go over the challenges and how things have changed. We're doing a lot of virtual closings, virtual co-op board interviews. So from what I understand, there's a couple things that are happening with mortgages. One, interest rates are amazing, right? Two is that anybody that was in the middle of a mortgage product during COVID, they had to rewrite the mortgage product. And so a lot of people went and just applied for a new mortgage because those products were then written with COVID in mind. And so they have created new products with COVID in mind. And that those regulations and, you know, things, the standards that they're holding people accountable to are probably a little bit more challenging. I've had deals, you know, buyers lose out on getting their financing because they've taken job or pay cuts, been furloughed. So those situations, they definitely have to make an adjustment. But if you're in an industry and have job security, you know, a lot of times the mortgage companies are asking for job letters that, you know, so the companies can reassure that they're going to have a job in a year. So there are some changes, and I think that it is more challenging for people that don't have good relationships and savings and equity with their bank. So if you have, you know, I've been with Bank of America for 15 years. If I was going to get a loan from them, they'd see my last 15 years of history with them at least, and be able to make an adjustment. So if you're, I think it's challenging. And I don't, is there a mortgage broker on the line to see more specifically about, it's not something I deal with day to day, so I don't have the new regulations sort of outlined, but I know that, you know, things have changed.
Randy White is a financial restructuring attorney. So, Randy, do you maybe have something you can add to that?
I think we might have
You
lost
need to unmute. There you go.
In terms of what the present climate is like, I think it's very difficult to really say where we're heading right now. We do a lot of restructuring work, and I know I'm right now handling a bankruptcy case which involves the sale of the Hampton property, and we're finding that everyone's talking about moving the sales process closer to the fall. But in terms of rentals, it's a very hot market that people are really trying to get out of New York City. So
who wouldn't want to go to the Hamptons for the summer and get out of New York with the beaches open?
Yeah, so clearly there's money out there. It's just a matter of who has it and who doesn't have it, unfortunately. And like you said, there are winners and losers, unfortunately, in this. Like every economic crisis, I'm just concerned that there are going to be more losers than normal, and it's going to be a bit of a rough road out of things.
There is money out there. I have some rental listings right now in the $6,000, $7,000, and $8,000 point that people are calling on, surprisingly, because they want to be in Brooklyn and have green space. Because, you know, that having access to that outdoor space means a lot to people right now. And I know people, I'm getting a lot of interest in the Catskills too. People want to go out and be in nature for the summer because they're not going to be able to go to Coney Island. So I think that, you know, there is money, and you know, there's a lot of people that kept their jobs and are just working from home and don't want to live in their 1-bedroom apartment right now. So
yes.
Michelle, I'm sorry we can't answer more specifically about the mortgage situation, but it depends on your specific situation, I think, and what your finances look like. And the bank will be able to, you know, analyze that more specifically. People that have more stable jobs, you know, and that have a future of stability is not going to be as challenging as people that work for themselves, and those which were always challenges to begin with. So any design questions about your specific project? Chelsea, are you dying to ask us about your 1-bedroom to 2-bedroom renovation?
Well, I mean, without like giving you guys like the floor plans to look at and everything like that, I guess if you have any input about like temporary walls, I have a contractor and I had him come into my space. The living room is a good sized space, which is, you know, I've got 2 kids, so that's why I chose this particular apartment. The living room is 26 by 14. So I thought that would be perfect. I could put a wall right down the middle.
Right.
But, you know, it's a co-op, so we have to get a pressurized wall.
Yeah.
And my contractor had mentioned something about, I was thinking, so the back part has windows. So if I took that and put that as the kid's bedroom, I would lose the window space in the front area of the living room. And so I was thinking about getting like a pressurized wall with those like French doors. And my contractor said that the French doors would be too heavy. So I was just wondering, like, if you could let me know about your your experience with pressurized walls and
Sure, sure.
and trying to get some light into that.
So, congratulations on the new apartment. Let me ask you a question. How old are the children?
One is 8 and one is 9.
And they're going to share the space,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, something that I have done in the past for clients who have this situation is that you can go this in two ways. Obviously, because that is going to be the children's room, or are you going to make that the master bedroom? I guess is my question.
That would be the children's room, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So obviously, key things in a children's room. You don't want it to be too serious. You need to have something that is pleasing to the eye, but you also need something like that stability, because kids like to bang against things. It's just part of the rite of passage of going from being a child to being a teenager, and then from a teenager to adulthood. So I do have some experience with the pressurized walls, where it's kind of like a rail, almost like a rail system that's up and down, and the wall is added. I have a company that I do use specifically for that. But something that you may even be able to consider, the co-op may allow you to put up something that's what I call a permanent temporary wall that is put up, actually drilled into the ceiling, drilled into the floor. And then you could have a transom or a window across the top, so that you don't lose the light coming into the living room area. And then you could have French doors. But the issue is, if you have French doors, you're going to have like a leaded glass on them or something, because when the kids, you want to have them go in their room and be able to close the door and have privacy to some degree, right? So obviously, a door that also lets light through is the optimum choice. But the decisions on the design are always dictated by the budget. So these pressurized walls, I mean, depending on the width and the height, it's generally $10 a linear foot. So you multiply the cost by the length and the height.
That's
So,
really
I mean,
numbers to crunch there.
yeah. So, if you have a smaller, if you wanted to do this for a few $1,000s, you may have to look at something that's more like a combination of sheetrock and 2x4s, and you may have to go that route if you have a smaller budget. So I mean, all design is dictated by the budget, and then of course the end use.
Well, I know that JP is going to be offering free 15-minute consultations to anybody that wants to discuss their project specifically. And Chelsea, I think you have a budget that maybe you could talk more specifically about what you want to do in that budget, and see if the things align for working with somebody that's going to help you. Because it's the one thing that I missed in my construction, and I got something called decision fatigue, is when at the end, like picking things, I made some bad decisions because I was exhausted and tired of making decisions, and I just kept on telling my contractor, I don't know, you pick, I don't know, you pick, because I got decision fatigue, because it's a lot of decisions, and especially when you're working with budgets and all these other moving parts. So I think,
well, and then of course the co-op, because it's a co-op, they're
right.
going to put their finger in the pie, and they're going to say, well, Mrs. Rodriguez, you can do this, or you can't do that, or it has to have the floor, because it's going to be a kid's room. They're probably going to want to have some kind of carpeting on the floor, and all of those kinds of things. And then obviously, as a designer, I am familiar with the products that are the give the best value for the money in terms of wear and tear with kids, and then some people have special needs children, and you've got to take all those kinds of things into consideration. So Chelsea, if you'd like, you can please give me a call. I'll be happy to take this offline and address your specific situation I'm by the way, everyone on the call, I'm offering a free phone consultation. So please feel free to reach out if you have a specific question. But something else you may want to consider is, the big box stores like IKEA. You might be able to do something more temporary with just like storage units and having those be your dividers. But if you want soundproofing, I have a long list of questions. So it depends on the direction you want to go in.
So I think that's a good way to go, as you guys discuss offline. I'm going to let anybody else ask questions, but we've been talking for an hour, and so I'm
Oh, goodness.
I know
Yeah.
it flies so fast, honestly. That's why I always try to keep my part so brief, because I know that the most important part is having us as a resource and our expertise open to anybody to ask us questions. And I think that it's a great value to provide to people. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to see if there's any other last questions before we end today. I really appreciate Andrew's questions, and Randy, I appreciate you jumping in with your expertise. I think we had really great discussion here. So anybody else want to say anything before we sign off for today? And we'll look for our follow-up email. We're going to send some resources that we have to everybody that joined us. All good? Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy this beautiful day outside.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
everyone. Stay
Thank
safe
you,
and
everyone.
sanitized.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay well. Bye-bye.